Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today we're going to paint a wonderful loose sunflower field. I give you a reference photo. We go over this. I talk about many ways to paint the sunflowers. If you're a person who paints soldier flowers and soldier leaves, you know what I'm talking about. They all look like wah, 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 wah. We're going to do this kind of loose and free. You know, I'm splattering it and then we're going and painting around it and turning it to sunflowers. So many ways to try and create the flowers without having to do simple, without having to do really intense, one leaf at a time, one petal at a time. It would make you crazy. And at the end, I had a little gouache to some of my leaves to get the highlights here. If you did masking fluid in the beginning, you can do that too. But this is just an intuitive painting this whole scene. I gave you the reference photo. It's linked in the description. Hit that description box for the reference photo. And really, there's no traceable. You can just draw this thing yourself. It's so simple. Lots of simple techniques here. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, so let me go over. I have Fabriano's 100% cotton cold pressed paper, 7 by 10 inch block. You have the wonderful inspiration photograph that's linked in the description box below. Don't have to follow this to a T. I'm going to play around with a bunch of different brushes, etc. And we're going to wash in the sky first. I just drew in like basically a basic line where you see the horizon kind of situation, and here's like the mound of the dark green trees in the background and maybe a little dark green here. Kind of just drew in the road. I really encourage you to just draw in some simple shapes, and we're going to start to paint things real quickly. So for the sky, I'm going to do wet on dry, just using a simple number 12 Neptune series brush. I'm going to use some ultramarine blue, loosen it up a little bit. I like to pick up my pad. Just helps. And I'm just going to start to throw that in. Just little sides, real quick. See how fast that goes? Leave some white spots. Boom. I'm just going to pick up some of this paint here and get a little bit thicker up here with the color. See how fast I kind of put that in? And up here. And that's all you do. You don't have to go crazy painting skies. Don't do this back and forth with your brush too much streaky, because then it will look streaky. I'm adding some more thicker color. You want the darker color on top, lighter on the bottom. Now the bottom is doing this weird thing right here. I can just kind of lift the paint a little bit so it kind of bleeds back down in a normal kind of fashion, because before it was just weird. And then we have this haphazard little whites here kind of happening, and I kind of fill them in if I want to. I'm not going to put the clouds in. It's just not necessary. If you want to put the clouds in, it's my interpretation of this painting. This photograph. So do it what you'd like to do, but I'm just keeping it simple, and I'm not doing the same blue. Mine's ultramarine blue. You can do cerulean, whatever you feel like doing. It's up to you. So we're gonna let that dry a bit. While that's drying, you know that the sunflowers are coming up over here a little bit. If you want to remove a little bit of paint, grab whatever kind of brush. It's kind of stiff. I'm just going to remove this area right here. There was a sunflower that's going to go right here. And I'm just going to lift that up. I can lift that with paint. A brush or just paper towel. And the rest we're going to go below the line. So you would paint the sunflowers first, in my opinion, or mask them in, because, if you do them after the greens, then what's going to happen is that screen's going to be underneath that. It's going to show up. I'm going to remove my blue. Get my yellows ready for some flowers. This is a fun brush to use. It's a filbert brush, number 8, Velvet Touch series. I like it. You can make all kinds of petals with this. I'm going to grab my cadmium yellow deep. How about some cadmium red light? Makes a nice orange. And we get some burnt umber here. So we get a couple of colors going for our sunflowers. And I'm going to use this brush many ways. So you can take this brush and you can make, here's a scrap, great little petals for daisies, just by using the chisel end. Or, this end. Or we can even use just a small skinny flat wash brush for the sunflowers. If I can ever find mine. Sometimes I find it and sometimes I don't. I have a 3/8 inch, but I don't even think that's small enough. I need a really small one. And I don't know if I have a small tiny one, but if you do, use that too. But this was going to work out great. And getting the paint a little thicker and cream consistency. And I'm just going to take the brush. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm just going to play with doing some simple petals. Now that's a little too orangey. I'm going to water it down. A little thick. Just go real quick. Making these petals. And then see where the sunflowers would be here, over here. So like you got some over here. I'm going real quick making these petals. And I don't make them all in a circle because they don't look like they're all in a circle. And as it's a little bit wet, I can bleed some orange. Another thing I can do is just tip tap some lovely colors in here. Some of the sunflowers are not even showing themselves. They're kind of like on their side, like the ones down in here. See, I'm kind of just going to go really quick with the petal. Now, that you can tell it looks like a sunflower. We can go kind of even looser than that. I could take my number 12 brush and just go like this. See, I'm just going to put the wiggle, tap it, little ones. There's little teeny sunflowers out here. You know, we can put a color. We're going to put that little blackish brown in the circle in the middle. So we could just kind of just tap in little sunflowers like this. Again, wiggle the brush. So you can just do like little petals like that. It's up to you. We can even just kind of bleed it, you know. But we need to do the yellow before we do the green. So I'm going to go like this. And I could use, like I said, this 3/4 inch brush or 3/8 inch brush. Let's see how I would do that. Now I've shown some people how to do it with a big flat wash brush. This is smaller. It's going to create kind of fun little lines on the chisel end. Making it a lot looser. You could just paint an orange yellow blob with some little spikes coming out of it. It's up to you, but we're going to do this pretty quickly. You know, there's so many ways you can play with this. You can just clean off your brush, get a little loose with the water just on here, put some water in. See, I'm kind of mushing this around now. And just tap some of that color. Kind of thick right out of the tube. Tap like that, and you can create sunflowers that way. So you get it wet with just water. I'm showing you many ways to kind of throw those sunflowers in. You're not stuck with just little petals. Right? So mine's getting very loose. You got that. It doesn't matter if the yellow is spread out and all that good stuff. Because why? Because we're going to paint green over it. You can't paint yellow over green. Well, you could, but it won't look right. But you can do this. So we'll do little tappies out here. And grabbing some more orange kind of color here. See, just kind of tap it around. You can show the petals and get a little bit thicker with your paint. Now I put a lot of sunflowers just kind of mushed around in here. And again, we're going to put the green over it. So I wouldn't worry about, oh my God, I painted too many of them. And look at this mess that I created. Again, it's supposed to have the feel of it, the sunflower feel. I'm just kind of putting little lines on some of these, tapping it. See how I kind of get that wet in between? And we're going to go back in with the greens, and we're going to just get a little more energy going here. You get even thicker paint right out of the tube. Boom. I kind of love these ones. Oh, don't worry about that. Just kind of splattered everywhere. They'll know it's sunflowers. Trust me. Grab some like orange color tones and kind of put those in. Some brown with the burnt umber. Mixed in the yellow, we get a little brown. Kind of bleed some of that kind of color in there. Again, we're going to have fun with this. It's not supposed to be perfect. So that's what you do with that. You know, if you don't have the filbert brush, you don't need it because I really didn't use it. I used the number 12 brush, and I'm going to go back in with even just a 10 and make some nice simple petals. Again, you don't have to use the same brushes as me, etc., etc. So once you have all that, you're going to let that dry. I'm going to go back in with the greens, or you can go with the greens now while it's still a little bit wet. I'm going to grab some Prussian blue right into my yellow here. Look at that. We've got greens. Look at how it changes over here with the orange color. So we get more of a olive green here, and you've got more. Look at that. Just to bleed in between some of those. Look at this. We're just going to go like this. Get a little bit darker. Adding more. And the paint is pretty thick. It's almost like butter, but it's cream consistency. By adding more pigment. See? going around our flowers. And I'm taking, this is just a 10 brush, Velvet Touch. And I'm just kind of wiggling around where I want my flowers. Here I put a stem and just kind of add. It's not going to move much if the paint is pretty thick. Now you see a lot of these leaves kind of going like this. Again, we're just looking for the photograph for the road and the inspiration. We don't have to paint all our lovely sunflowers exactly the same as you see in the photograph. Now it's still bleeding because it's very wet. And go up in here, in between and around some of these lovely yellow blooms here. We will get to this stuff too. Don't freak out. Don't worry. But see, I'm just taking a brush and going in between here. You can get even darker with that green, getting some more Prussian blue and some burnt umber. Kind of just throw that in there. Even in here where it's kind of building up. We could just do some simple leaves coming down. Right. Now, at this point, if you want to go in, I'll grab a number 12 again and wash in some of this green that you see by the side of the road. Just going to wash that green in, kind of up in here. Again, it's not going to look perfect. It's supposed to have fun with this. It's a simple landscape. There's a little green happening here. Kind of, I'm doing it haphazardly like you see in the road. Like this, grabbing some darker greens. And then there's more greens back here. Right? And there's some really kind of light greens way back here. See, I'm kind of blending that into that now. Still with that number 12 brush. Going over here. La la la, filling it in around my yellow. It will look like sunflowers, trust me, when we finish. I'm going to finish all these white spots in between, kind of filling them in. That was my doodle dog, if you heard that noise. He's my studio mate. So we're just filling that in around some of these yellow areas. Do have some blobs in there, but we'll take care of that. Same thing with this. Just kind of fill that in. See? It's a sunflower field. It's coming together. Now, you know, there's like a blob here, but we're going to fill it in with more greenery, etc. Now we have that dark green. You can kind of put that in now if you'd like for the background here, the trees. I'm using Prussian blue, burnt umber, and yellow. Just taking my brush and just kind of like wiggling it to indicate the trees. They were very loose. Could just be one kind of solid color or you can bleed in some other deeper, darker colors. I'm adding in some burnt umber in here. We could even more burnt umber. Just to give it a variety of the color tone here. And then we have that light green happening. It's a little bit darker. Again, back here. Just kind of wiggling my brush. Indicate that mass of green of trees in the background. See, I'm wiggling it, swirling, going around the sunflower. And there we go. Really loose, fun landscape. Look how cool that looks already, right? It's looking like it. It's just loose. It's just not going to be as perfect as the photograph. And we're not going for perfection here. We're going for essence of it. All right. And I'm going to add a little bit more green tapping in here. Like this. Leaving that light still here. I can use my number 12. Go like this, wiggle down. So that's pretty wet, but we're going to kind of fill it in now with some deeper greens in here and get rid of some of this blotchy yellows that make no sense. Right? So let this dry for a bit. Now let's dry. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. I'm going to water it down. Add a little bit of the ultramarine blue. Make a nice color for that road. Water it down a little bit more. You don't want it to be orangey color. It has to have a little more nuance to it. You can even add yellow ochre if you want. All right, water this down. Very, very light tea consistency. And I get that road in there. I can go right over the green. Just go like that. Fill that in. Right over the green, it's fine. Even down here. And of course, you'll have to wait till that dries before you can paint on top of it because it's very, very wet. That's my doodle again. So at this point, we're going to grab some, I'm going to grab my Princeton 8 Long Round Velvet Touch Series. All the brushes will be listed, of course, always in the description box. Mixing up some greens. We talked about the greens 1,000 times. You should play with mixing up greens. You want bright greens, use Prussian blue, and I use peacock blue for like more of a Kelly green. You want dull greens, use the ultramarine blue. It makes a really dull green. So we have a lot of blotchy yellow in here, which will be gone. We're going to put some lines coming down. Not soldiers. We're going to kind of wiggle some leaves now. Going to be getting rid of this yellow, but we're going to wiggle this color. Let me get a little bit lighter. So you see some poking through, but not. So picture how, see how these kind of wiggled leaves here. They're kind of wiggling. Putting lines down, kind of bunches. And I'm going to go over this. Keep some of them into a shape that would be a sunflower. You see how this is working? Get that darker green. So I'm putting some lines down for the stems and then wiggling the leaves that come down. You might want to actually go back in and do a nice little wash of green in here. I'm kind of just wiggling this as well, a little bit deeper. I'm filling in these spots, these white spots. You can even go over the yellow spots. See, I'm just kind of tapping over the yellow spots. And now you see everything's starting to come together. I'm going over these blotches. So now they look like sunflowers, maybe some like peeking in. And we'll fill in some of these areas. If it helps you to fill it in first and the center of it, we'll do that too. You know, because I remember I just splotched some of this and you're like, wait, where did the center of the flower go? So we can play around with fixing that and adding in some browns. But here we're just going to play with adding in the stems and the leaves and all that good stuff. It's the essence of sunflower field. It doesn't have to be perfect. See, I'm kind of wiggling this brush, doing some little stems, long stems. Wiggle for leaves, long stems, wiggle for leaves. I don't want a perfect picture. I want a really loose, kind of pretty sunflower field. And that's what we're creating here. Fill in those little white gaps with the dark green or light green, and then you'll start to see the sunflowers coming. Yeah, they'll come to shape here. Just filling it in. See, they're getting there. Now some are bigger than others. So like I said, do you want to go back in with your yellows? This is a little brown over here. If that makes you feel better. Here's the yellow and here's the little bit of orange. And you can go back in and make those little petals so you can see them. Because, you know, they get lost in that just blob. But I kind of like the blobby kind of look. And I'll show you in a second. I'm going to fill that in with some burnt umber. Here's the burnt umber. Payne's gray. So it's a nice deep dark brown. So like you figure there's a center here, right? There's a center here. Center. You just go in here and fill in these centers. See how loose and fun that looks now? You can put them just like little lines in the side if you're having little tiny ones. But that's how I would do like a simple sunflower field. You don't have to make your life crazy painting every nook and cranny of the sunflower, because that would be very daunting. See, I splotched in those colors and just threw in the little dot. Little round circle dot. And it's not exactly like the photograph, but it doesn't need to be, in my opinion. See, you know that's sunflowers, right? And then from here, you just kind of, like I said, you're filling in all those little gaps. You can get really dark with your greens, like in the front, and put these lines down and this. See, I'm just going to taking my brush and swooping out for those leaves and put a stalk down, a stalk, and the leaves, stalk down, and some leaves. Kind of wiggle like leaves. If you want to fill in these little gaps from the white areas of the sunflowers, you can do that. See, I'm doing that. Light green, dark green, move it around. And you have a kind of really kind of cool picture. My intention was to keep it nice and loose and light. So I'm going to go back in here. Just put some lines coming down for the stalks. I really wanted it loose and light. And you can just basically water down any green you have here. Just go in here and fill in all these little white areas. A nice wash of green. It can be lighter, it could be a little bit darker. And you won't have less white and you see more sunflower kind of peeking through now. You see, I'm just filling in some of these gaps. The white. It all comes together. Right? It's a loose sunflower field. You don't have to make yourself nuts. And I take those same greens and kind of make them rough like you see here on the photograph. Tap it on a paper towel. Tap. And kind of get that dry brushing on the road. See? Like that. Back and forth. This is the number 8 long round. I went back and forth. I can grab some darker color. A little bit darker than what I had just put down there. Again, back and forth. Poking through, and we're going to do some for the stone gravel on the road as well. So you just grab some burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, whatever, even burnt umber. Here's burnt umber. Can add some Payne's gray to that, make it like a brown, or even just Payne's gray. But ultramarine blue and burnt sienna make a nice gray too. And I tap it on my paper towel, and I do dry brush. Look at that. And you get that like gravelly kind of look. You can do a little splatter too, a little teeny bit of splatter. I wouldn't do too much of it. Get a little darker here on my road. See, I'm just going side like that. You can hear that noise. That's me with the side doing the dry brush. And you get that gravel look. You can take a liner brush, which I have here, and maybe add some grasses, so that'd be kind of nice and sweet. Nice little addition. So here I'm going and grabbing grasses, like on the greens. Smaller as you get further away, obviously, and bigger as you get closer. So the grass, that just adds like another thing. You can add some grasses in the front of this field, and they can come kind of over the grass in the field on the road. Again, all these little things add up to making a very interesting painting. Ooh, take a grass there. You know, these are things to think about. Liner brushes are so great. If you don't have one, get one in your repertoire. Fantastic. Oh, and I'm going to add this here. And you could use it simply for the actual sunflower stems and whatnot. You could do some leaves up here. I think it'd be kind of fun to put some sprawling little wisps up in here, changing things out a little bit from the photograph. It's up to you. But again, more things to think about. Again, the grass gets smaller going away, larger coming closer towards you. Also, if you want to mix a little, it's not totally watercolor, but it can be mixed media. Sometimes it's fun just to take one of your paintings, mix a little white gouache to some of your greens, and then you have these highlights you can use for petals and leaves on your greens that were darker. It's up to you. You wouldn't want to have to do that if you want to keep it completely, totally watercolor. But I think it's fun just to add a little bit of fun to it. It doesn't have to be a total watercolor picture. It's up to you. Look at that energy you get though, putting that color in there. You know, it's just changing it up a little bit more. I like to play around with it. It doesn't always have to be watercolor for me. I like a combination sometimes. And now you get that feeling of the leaves, the stocky leaves. Play around with it. You can keep it totally watercolor. You can play around with it by not doing that. But you know, some of my paintings are completely totally watercolor, and some of them have some fun with a little bit of gouache. So all you have to do is add a little white. Just a little bit of white goes a long way. And some yellow. Have fun with it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and remember to hit the bell notifications button to know my tutorial is up. You have to hit all notifications, otherwise you won't always see my stuff. I was told this because some people said they weren't seeing it. And so you have to hit all notifications when you go to click bell notifications. See, you can take the yellow right out of the tube, go back here and highlight that. That kind of got lost. So that's how you'll know my tutorials up. I have not stopped doing tutorials weekly since I started YouTube, so I'm always here. And maybe don't forget me. All right, folks, I hope you enjoy this. Look at this. You just go in here and do the detail at the end. It's so much fun. So you can splotch it and then go paint over it. Look how cool it came out. All right, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.